Hello everyone, Jack Delahy, founder of collegeconsulting.us here, and today I'm excited. I'm going to talk about something I am deeply passionate about, and it is the title of my whiteboard here. First, I'll actually just let you know we will put a link in the description of a zoomed in photo of this exact whiteboard, so if you want to take a look at it, or if you're watching on your phone and you don't want to have to zoom in, we will put a JPEG in the description of this YouTube video so you can follow along if you want to zoom in. The title of my whiteboard today is how to get straight A's in high school and sleep 8 hours every night. Again, something I'm deeply passionate in. And before I get into this, everything that I've written here, I want to tell you a little story. When I was in high school in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, for the first 3 years of high school, 2007, 2008, 2009, I would be what I would categorize now, especially having worked in this industry for over 15 years, I was a grind student. I was a good student, but a grind student, meaning I got my A's basically through sheer willpower. I got my A's by not sleeping at night. I got my A's by relentlessly doing problem after problem at 1 a.m. at my desk instead of going to bed. And while that worked for a little bit, I hit a breaking point junior year where I just realized it was not sustainable, nor was it the way that I wanted to live my life. I had a year and a half of high school left, and I said there's got to be a better way. And so we'll link to it in the description. I've talked about it in a lot of my books, but I ended up going on Amazon at the time in 2000. This would have been 2009, 2008 maybe. And I typed in how to be a straight A student. It was the first time in my life at 16 years old I said, I'm going to try to create a game plan to better my life. And that was a pretty profound moment for me. And the book that I found was How to Become a Straight A Student, written by Cal Newport. By the way, since then, I've actually met with Cal Newport in person. He is an incredible person, but he truly changed my life in high school. And a lot of the teachings that I'm going to give you today, I'm going to pass along to you as well, that really initiated from him. And I've put my own spins on it, but I think that there is a real issue with high schoolers these days. We at collegeconsulting.us exclusively work with high-performing high schoolers who need a plan. And I think what I hope to bring you in this YouTube video today is a plan. I see a lot of high-performing high schoolers that continue to grind every day in high school because they haven't ever been taught a high-leverage plan of attack to go throughout their high school day, to take their high school back to them when it's a homework assignment and say, what's the best way to tackle this homework assignment? And so my goal today is to try to teach you. If you're watching this, you're probably a parent of a high schooler. Maybe we've got some high schoolers watching this, but bring this back to your high schooler, especially if they're high-performing. They will likely get great value from implementing even just one of the tactics that I'm going to share with you today to be able to stand out in high school, get straight A's without burning out. And by the way, the results of my experiment after reading the book, How to Become a Straight A Student by Cal Newport, and then implementing them my senior year, after I implemented these, I became an entirely different student. Again, I was a good student before, but it was through sheer willpower. And I became a high-performing straight A student. I did not get an A- my senior year of high school, and I was spending half, maybe a third the amount of time doing homework, doing problems. And I had a lot more time for family, friends, and yes, sleep. So the results are there. By the way, we'll put some screenshots on the YouTube video of recent students in our paid-for program who have applied these methods, and we'll actually show you the results that they're saying that they've obtained as well. So with that, let's start out. Let's actually start out here. Foundational study habits. We're going to talk about class specific in a second, but everything starts foundational. And I'm going to walk through these 3 steps of foundational study habits. So step 1, choose the right classes. Choose the right classes. And this comes in a multitude of ways, but the way I would think about this is if a student already knows what their interests are, potentially has a path, potentially says, I'm pretty sure I want to lean towards this area or these areas for an eventual potential college major, that is really good to know. Because what that means is, just to give you an example, if a student wants to major in, let's call it the softer classes, meaning the English, the social studies, then if they're grinding through and in the absolutely most difficult, if they're in BC Calc and they're grinding through that, they're not properly allocating their time. The story that student is going to tell to college admissions is not centered around BC Calc. So choose the right classes based on the story that you want to tell. Now, some students say, I have no idea what story I want to tell. I'm a freshman. I got you. I understand that. Then what I would say is continue to take a wide range of classes until you figure that out. And once you figure that out, then start to allocate your highest leverage activities towards the classes that you think that you are eventually going to major in or want to pursue further. Choose the right classes. On that note, also, we have in our program something that we live by, which is called the B+ rule. Now, the B+ rule is a blanket statement rule. There are nuances for each individual, but for the sake of YouTube, I have to give blanket statement rules. So here we go. The B+ rule says if you can get a B+ or higher in a class, then it should be worth considering taking. However, if you can get a B or lower in a class, and that's all that you can get, it's actually worth it to drop down a level so that you can then get an A in a lower level class, which will actually be deemed more impressive by college admissions. Again, this is a blanket statement rule. Are there nuances where the B+ rule wouldn't apply? Yes, but we have many students who, again, to use BC Calc, one of the hardest classes across the country for high schools, we have students who are grinding out and getting B- in BC Calc. Our opinion, if you were in our program and we could actually guide you one-on-one, would be stop. If you're going to get a B-, drop down to the lower level calculus class, get that A, and then focus on other aspects of your application. Choose the right classes, starts you off foundationally. Now, let's assume that you have the right classes. You have the classes that align with the path that you want to go towards. You're optimizing your classes where the hardest rigor classes are on that path that you want to optimize. If you're in those soft skills areas, those classes, you're taking high rigor classes there, and perhaps you're saying, you know what, I know I'm not going to major in math, so given how much I'm struggling in calc, maybe I will drop down. You can still get into an absolutely elite college if you identify the right classes for you and the story you're going to tell the college. Let's say that you've done that. Now, let's get into actually organization. This might seem silly. You're like, Jack, why are you talking about day-to-day what should be in a student's backpack? Because the environment you set for yourself sets you up for success or failure. And the amount of students I see who are super hardworking, motivated, they're brilliant students, and they've never once been taught how to actually organize their backpack for a day of classes in high school. So when it comes to organization, simplicity is king. I recommend that every student have simply one folder, or you could call this a binder for each class. This is to store papers, handouts, things that your teacher is going to give you inbound. After that, I recommend one notebook for each class. Now, this could be a paperback notebook if it's more old school style, if you like handwriting. These days, I'm very aware that students operate in the classroom with laptops. That's quite all right. What that should mean then is if this is all about taking notes. So you've got one folder to actually get your pieces of paper or binder, and then one note-taking apparatus. This can be a paperback notebook, or it can be a folder in your laptop designed specifically for that class to take notes in. Whatever it is, that is all you need. There's a lot of gurus out there that will say, oh, you should have 10 different assets assigned to each class, and here's where you keep your homework, and here's... Simplicity is key when it comes to organization, especially organization for teenagers. If you make it too complicated, they won't adopt it. Believe me, after running a company helping teenagers, high-performing teenagers thrive, I can confidently say simplicity is king. So, given that, let's say you've got 7 classes or 8 classes, then you can identify you will have 14 or 16 things. And then you can set your backpack up that way so that when you go to class, you know that every single class has one folder, one notebook, or one folder and one folder inside a laptop to take notes. That is it. Simplicity is king. By the way, inside that folder, if you want, you can have inbound, so handouts, and then you could have the other flap of the folder be designed for action items you need to take, meaning like homework assignments tonight, that type of thing. We've gone through choosing the right classes. We've gone through your organization on a day-to-day. I know that might sound silly, but again, the amount of students I've seen that have no process whatsoever. And what we do at collegeconsulting.us is help students set up a proper process. So that's my goal today here. So let's continue with that foundation, that process. Second part here. When it comes to actually studying. So you've chosen the right classes. You now go to class every single day feeling ultra organized. When you get to class, you take out of your backpack one notebook, one folder for the class, ready and at attention. Fantastic. Well, guess what? You're going to be given grades in that class. How do you actually optimize your time so you can, again, get straight A's? Yes, straight A's. I did it for a whole year. Not a single A-. And yes, I slept 8 hours every night. You can go ask my mother. How do you actually study? Well, Again, a lot of these are adopted from Cal Newport's How to Become a Straight A Student. I will beware, we'll link to it in the description, but just know the book was written in 2006. There are many outdated portions of that, but again, holistically, the themes behind it stand true today. When it comes to studying, first thing I would say, optimize your environment. Please, students, do not study at your dining room table. Have a dedicated zone for studying. That does not necessarily need to be an entire office. It does not need to be a grandeur office, but it should be a zone where only studying happens there. The human brain tries to optimize for its environment. And so if you are studying at the dinner table, first of all, there are probably a plethora of distractions, but secondarily, it's actually harder. You can go look this up. You can look at Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about how the environment is a trigger to the human brain. This applies for adults, but this certainly applies to teenagers whose brain is constantly growing and evolving. Have a go-to location where all you do is study. That could be a section of a room. That could be a section of your bedroom. But ideally, make that section the place that you go to study every single day after school for your homework assignments. It will help your brain trigger into go mode. It's time to study. When you are studying, second tip here. So now you've got your go-to zone. Again, you can get this sense of organization already, right? Feel that confidence. You've chosen the right classes. You now have organization when you go to those classes. And now you have organization starting when you go home to do your homework, to study for tests. When you do study, use what we call the 50-10 method. That means 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. 50 minutes on means set a timer. Ideally, that timer is not on your phone. We'll get to airplane mode in a second. But 50-10, set a timer. It could be on your watch. It could be on your laptop. It could be on a timer that you just have on your desk. By the way, I literally have a 50-10 timer on my desk. I got it on Amazon for $7. And I still use it to this day as a 33-year-old. 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off. The brain studies most efficiently in on and off chunks like this. 4-hour marathon study sessions, 8-hour marathon study sessions, like I've seen students relay to me, are not as effective. The goal here is to get straight A's and sleep 8 hours every night. The goal isn't to get straight A's and be miserable. There are people out there who can promote that approach. That's not the approach we like to promote. 50 minutes on. When your 50-minute timer starts, you go all in. You are solely focused on the task at hand, whether that's homework problems, whether that's writing an essay. When your 10-minute timer starts, so after 50 minutes, you're all in, you've been going. When 50 minutes is up, timer will go off. You are all out. This is crucial because you're going to use these 10 minutes for your brain to reset. What I mean, get up from your chair, go downstairs. Go hug your mom, hug your dad, eat some food, drink some water. If you want, go on Instagram, go on TikTok, and whatever is your true way to rest. Relinquish your brain from actually processing the information in hand. Then, guess what? When the 10 minutes is up, back in. You would be shocked how much you can accomplish if you just do 3 of these sessions. If you do 3 of those sessions over an evening, you can do the math. That's 3 total hours of studying. You would be shocked at how much more effective you are versus what we see often these days. Students studying at their dining room table with their phone right next to them, their phone pinging every 20 seconds with a new text, a new TikTok, a new Instagram, a new DM. This, compared to that, is night and day. So you've set yourself up for an environment. You now know how to study properly with 50-10. Here's what can pour fuel on the fire. Airplane mode on your phone. Every one of these 50-minute chunks, airplane mode. So there is no option in your mind to say, well, I'm at the 27-minute mark and my brain's starting to get a little tired. Let me just check my phone. Nope. Your phone is on airplane mode, or put it a floor below you, or a floor above you, or in a drawer. And again, we will share screenshots on the screen of students who have gone through this in our program and said it changed their life. It will be hard at the start. Heads up, the first couple of days will be difficult. You will not enjoy this, but it's amazing what happens after 3, 4, 5 days of doing this. You will realize this is attainable. For any high-performing student in this country, you start adding these routinely, consistently, this is absolutely possible. We now have the foundation. We've talked through foundational habits. That is general. Now let's get into the specifics. In high schools across the United States, there are 3 buckets of classes. 3. The first is objective soft classes. You can think of these like your English, your social studies, your languages. We then have objective hard classes. You can think of these like math and science. And then we have subjective. Now, subjective can actually be a sub under these, mostly under this one, which is just like essays or anything else that'll be subjective. You could even think of it as like some classes will have you stand up and give a presentation. Subjective. So you've got objective soft, objective hard, and subjective. Let's go through each because I'm going to walk step by step. If you can have these foundational habits, and then you can apply these foundational habits to each of the classes that you will ever have in your 4 years of high school, you are going to be unstoppable. So let's talk about it. Objective, soft classes. Again, English, social studies, the languages of the world. There is one best way to study for these classes, and that is the quiz and recall method with flashcards. Now, here's how the quiz and recall method works. So let's actually go through an example. We'll use like my sophomore year social studies class, which was like 20th century United States history. Again, these are, when we talk about classes like that, they are not the hard math and sciences, but there are right and wrong answers to portions of them. What I mean by that is, when was the Declaration of Independence signed? There is an answer, right? When was, we'll use where I'm from, Concord, Massachusetts. When was the shot heard around the world, right? There are right and wrong answers. And so it's important to realize that that will be a multiple choice setting. Same with English, right? What in chapter 2, what happened that angered the main character in the story? There's going to be a right or wrong answer. It might be A, B, C, or D, and A is wrong, and B is right, and C is wrong, and D is wrong. But there's going to be right or wrong answers. So the way to do this is use flashcards. Every single possible question you could be asked on an eventual quiz or test goes on a flashcard as a question on a front-facing side. Now, if it's a small quiz or test, you might have 10 possible questions. On the reading that was last night, if it's a massive test, you might have 150 possible questions. But again, if you're saying, well, Jack, I don't know what possible questions I could be asked, that is not an issue for me. That is an issue for you to talk to your teacher, because every single teacher in this country needs to make it very clear what you could be quizzed on. Absolutely. So if you don't know, go ask them, but eventually you will get down to, okay, I know that all the questions could come from this reading block, these possible lessons, therefore I can actually take everything that I might get asked and put into a question and answer form. Put that question on the front of a flashcard and do it however many times until you get through every single possible question that could be asked. On the upcoming test, let's now just say you've got 50 possible questions that could be asked, and you have now painstakingly taken them and written them in question and then flipped over and written the answer. You now have a stack of 50 flashcards. Again, you can just take index cards, the typical index cards. The goal here is simplicity. But your goal then is to sit at your environment, at your testing environment, start a 50-minute chunk and start going through those flashcards. Here's what will happen. At the start, you will get most of them wrong. This is how prepping for a test works. This is how prepping for a quiz works. And when you get them wrong, you'll put them in one pile. But the handful that you get right your first batch through, you'll put them in a correct pile. You've gone through them all. Now, guess what? Go back through. But at this point, you're not at 50. You're down to 43. You got 7 right. Guess what? Those 7 right, you do not have to look at again until the very end. We'll get to that. Now you go through again. This time from 43, you go down to 30. Fantastic. Now you've got a batch that's right and a batch that's wrong. Now you go through the wrong again. Oh, wait. My 50 minutes are up. Guess what? 10-minute break. 10 minutes are up. Come back. Now you're going. You've got 30 flashcards left. You keep going like this. Eventually, you will get through to a point where you have answered every single flashcard correctly. Every single flashcard correctly. Then, just as a double take, guess what you do? Go back, take the whole pile. Now you've got 50, do one more run through. You'll find that every once in a while you might get 1 or 2 wrong again. Do it again. Eventually you will have all 50 that you've gotten correct and you feel ultra confident in. And if it's strictly an objective test with no subjectivity, no essay writing, you know it's only going to be multiple choice. Here is where the beauty lies. You are done studying. The amount of students that just pull near all-nighters because they don't have an end to studying. There is no goal line. It's just, I'm going to study until I fall asleep at my desk. This is beautiful because it gives you an end. In the example I just gave, when you are 50 out of 50 correct, you're done. Go sleep 8 hours a night. Go hang out with your parents. Go hang out with your friends. High school is only 4 years. You only get it for 4 years of your whole life. Go enjoy it. Our whole notion at collegeconsulting.us is you can reach your dream school acceptance and sleep 8 hours a night and enjoy the process. So again, here's an example. You are now done. Congratulations. The vast majority of your peers will never know when they're done studying. They will simply study right up to the test, bleary-eyed, take it and say, well, now it's over. You will be able to sit back and say, I finished studying for that test 3 days ago. And they'll be like, what do you mean you finished? I finished? I knew all of my flashcards. And again, if you're like, Jack, does this really work? I'm living proof. I did this. I didn't get a single A- senior year. And I'm just one example. All right, now we move on. This will be parallel. So objective, hard classes, meaning the maths and sciences. These type of subjects innately have more problem solving. So it's not your typical multiple choice. Now there could be multiple choice in these, don't get me wrong, but again, you will have more problem solving. And so the goal is you take this exact same quiz and recall approach, but I call it quiz and answer, because instead of working through flashcards, you are going to work through a notebook. You are going to, again, take every single problem that you could possibly be asked, and you are going to accomplish it inside of a notebook. So here's how this would go. Like I'll recall my physics class senior year. You've got a textbook and it's very obvious. The teacher says, here are the sections of the textbook that could apply on your upcoming test. According to those sections, each of those sections has 25 questions in the back that are associated with those sections, and you've got 4 of them. So you've got 100 possible questions that could parallel. And the only difference for the quiz or the test is going to be he'll just replace numbers. But if hypothetically you knew how to do every single one of those 100 problems, you would be able to solve every question on the test, because the only difference is he's going to pull 15 of those 100 and he's just going to change the numbers. This is how hard subjects work. What do? Same thing. You get your 100 questions ready, you get a notebook out, and you go start. Again, set your 50-minute timer. Get ready. We are now in our environment. We are locked in, and you go. Now, 100 problems is going to take a while. Yes. You're studying for a major test, but you know what? It'll be way, way shorter than studying with no plan at all. And again, you have an end result, which is when you get 100 out of 100, you're done. So you'll go through, you'll label 1 to 100 in your notebook if you want, or you don't have to. You can just start with 1 and you will access the first problem that could possibly be on your test. Again, if you don't know, you've got to go talk to your teacher. That's step 0. But as long as you do know what could possibly be asked in your test, then the ball is in your court. You can go and label number 1, complete the question, complete the problem. Did you get it right? Yes or no? Literally have a check mark. Check, I got it right. And I got it wrong. Okay, now you move on to question 2. You go through, and here's what's more common. Something like this, what you'll see is you'll actually get a lot wrong at the start, like a multiple choice, because it's just facts you have to memorize. But something like this, I'm telling you, as long as you've been paying attention in class, if there were 100 possible problems, you will get minimum 50 right. Again, I could be wrong, but this is just anecdotal evidence. When you're dealing with problem solving, as long as you've been paying attention in class, you will get a significant portion right the first time. So guess what? Those 50 are out. Now you're at 50 problems that you got wrong. What do? You go back. Now, if you're saying, well, Jack, this sounds like pretty extensive, you can and should prepare for tests over multiple days. But as you can see, as long as you plan this out, none of your testing sessions should be long, laborious, and they certainly should not impede on you sleeping 8 hours every night. So you go through your notebook, same exact thing as quiz and recall, but it's just quiz and answer. You're in your notebook, and eventually you will go through and your X's will turn into check marks. And when you get to 100 out of 100 in this example, guess what? You're done. Again, just so you know, this is the exact process I used for my calculus class senior year, my physics class senior year, and I didn't get a single A-. It's this unbelievably relieving feeling when you just know you've done every kind of problem you could possibly see on the test, and the only difference is they'll switch out the numbers. Unbelievably relieving. But again, the vast majority of high school students do not do this because they're never taught a start to finish process. Lastly, subjective essays. So there could be essay writing, honestly, in either of these, but for the most part, the essay writing would come into the more soft classes. English, social studies, language. When it comes to essay writing, who knows? In the ChatGPT era, I don't know how much longer this is going to be asked for in school, but at least as I'm filming this in 2025, essays are very much still a part of not just standardized testing in high schools, but colleges. So for the sake of this, we're going to assume essays are still a thing. Now, when it comes to essays, the key to understand here is the power of early and often. Your teacher who has assigned your essay is a human. Your teacher who has assigned your essay has absolutely, because every teacher does this, put their hands up and said, hey, I have office hours. If you want to walk me through after I give the essay prompt, your essay's due in 10 days. If you want to ever come by and ask about your thesis, ask about your outline, let's talk. And guess what? No one ever does. Instead, what the vast majority of high schoolers do is they wait on the essay until 48 to 24 hours before, and then they bleary-eyed at night write an essay, they hand it in, and they hope. That is the definition of a grind student. By the way, you can get A's that way. It's just far less consistent than the process I'm showing you through here. How do you get A's on every paper? Early, often, and communicate with your teacher. I'm not going to give you tactics here like, oh, here's how to write the perfect opening sentence. That's not what this is about. No. I'm teaching you, if you're watching this as the high schooler, or if you're watching this as the parent, to relay back to the high schooler to understand the dynamics, the high leverage play. And the high leverage play when it comes to high school essays is to simply check in with your teacher at each major milestone of your essay. By the time you get to the end of your essay, your teacher will have approved every milestone. Can you think of a teacher who, after having approved your thesis, approved the subject you're writing on, approved your first draft, approved your second draft, given you tweaks for your revisions? Do you know a teacher who, when you finally actually submit that paper, would be like, this is not an A? It doesn't happen. In our program, we've taught this, and time again, students come back to us and report, I get an A on every one of my papers now. But guess what? It takes planning, because this does not work if you do it 48 hours before. You have to start this process when the essay is assigned. So when the essay is assigned, if it's, hey, this is going to be due in 10 days, you need to immediately write down, okay, 10 days, when are my check-ins with my teacher going to be? And you need to be relentless about it. And you need to be willing to go to office hours. But here's the thing, those office hours check-ins might take 10 minutes. And those 10 minutes are going to save you 10 hours on the back end. So instead of having a bleary-eyed night writing your essay before it's due, you will know calmly that you checked in at the 2-day mark when you thought of your thesis. You checked in at the 4-day mark when you came up with your outline. Teacher approved the outline, gave you a couple tweaks. You checked in after you wrote your first paragraph just to make sure. Teacher had a couple tweaks and said, keep going, this is awesome. You then checked in after your first draft. At this point, the teacher was like, wow, this kid is relentless, but I kind of respect it. And then you checked in after you revised your first draft. The teacher said, wow, I've met with you 5 times now. You are relentless. This is unusual. Most students don't meet with me this many times, but to be honest, I've now approved your thesis, your outline, your first draft, and here's my couple tweaks on your final draft. Once you do that, congrats. You now go back, you tweak it. Do you think when you submit that essay, they're going to give you anything but an A? This is human dynamics, folks. This is what we teach our students from a high leverage standpoint. What are the high leverage activities? The high leverage activities are to come up with essay plans like this, execute on them, and the total amount of time used is significantly less than the bleary-eyed student, the grind student I talked about, who I was for my first half of high school, cranking out essays 48 hours before. That is, start to finish, high level, how to get straight A's in high school and sleep 8 hours every night. Love making these. This was fun. Quick heads up, if you want a personalized college planning strategy session with our team, they're entirely free. You can feel free to click link in the description. We'll walk you through a critical type form survey. We've got to give a heads up. Our paid for program is exclusively for high performing high school students. And so we do have a fairly extensive survey process. 23% of families make it through that survey process and we actually have a call with. But if you think you have a high performing high schooler who could benefit not just from high level things like this, but actually personally designed coaching, feel free to click the link in the description. You can book a call with my team. And if not, or you're here just for the free materials, that's awesome. I love it. Congratulations. Thanks for being here. Again, we'll take a screenshot of this and put it as a link in the description. And until next time, good luck helping your high schooler get to straight A's and sleeping 8 hours every night. Cheers.